I changed my mind based on our data. And then surprisingly, once I noticed our data, whoa, there's other studies that also have said this that I didn't previously either appreciate when I read them or just didn't know of their existence. And the same thing happened, Joey, with your high protein study. I think you were the first study to say, hey, you can eat all this extra protein and people weren't gaining body fat. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And then we did a study and saw the same thing, not to the magnitude of what your lab did. So it is funny when your mind opens up to something, other things, you start seeing other evidence.
And that's why I bring up the spot reduction thing, because I know everyone, and we'll get to the main topic, but everyone's like, no, it doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. And I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I proposed my wacky, that's why my wacky theory came up.
So,
all right. So 2 years ago, Bill would say, you avoid rapid fat loss crash dieting at all costs. And the reasons you do this are what I talked about earlier. You lose lean tissue. That causes a massive increase in hunger when your diet is over because of hyperphagia. And again, I can point to several studies. One of the main ones is the Minnesota starvation experiment. That's a textbook of hyperphagia, a hyperphagic response to extreme.
Wait, Bill, no, that's a great study. Explain to the audience just real quickly what they did there, because it's an experiment that'll never be repeated. So
that's right.
Yeah, explain what happened in that study.
Yeah, and I guess I would say it wasn't a rapid fat loss study. It was an extreme weight loss study. So they took conscientious objectors that did not want to fight in, I think it was World War II. And they said, okay, you don't have to go fight. We're going to make you live in the University of Minnesota for about half a year. And the reason why researchers were studying this, it was literally a starvation study, is because post-World War II Europe, people were literally dying of starvation. It was just like what we did here with COVID. Everybody's studying COVID because it was relevant. Back at that time, people were studying starvation because there was a disrupted food supply, and literally and sadly, people were dying because they couldn't eat. So in this study, 24 weeks of about a 60 to 80% reduction in calories, and they maintain that. Lost, I mean, there's pictures. You can Google. These people look almost dead, but they're still alive. Just bones, skin and bones. There's one story of a person who thinks they cut their finger off because they were hungry. I think it was their thumb. So again, people just literally losing their minds because they were so hungry. Then after the study, they gave them unlimited access to food. Like, okay, the starvation part of this is over. And during that period, they gained massive amounts of weight back. And they also experienced what researchers believe. Now, they didn't measure hyperphagia, but the post-analysis of the study would suggest they just had an uncontrollable desire to eat. Actually, that's not true. I think it was a 4-week period. They controlled their food intake and they slowly gained back weight. Then when they said, you can do whatever you want, that's when the hyperphagia fit, and they gained back all of their body fat plus a lot more. And they kept gaining body weight, body fat, kept gaining more and more and more until the point where they gained back all of their lean tissue they had lost. Yes.
Yep.
So that was the first study where researchers said, hey, this post-diet weight gain might not be about fat, which is called the lipostatic theory. It may be more about lean tissue or your muscle mass. And again, a couple studies since that time have reported this. So rapid fat loss, what's changed in my mind? Avoid it at all costs is what I used to say. And I'm still mostly there. Most people shouldn't embrace a crash dieting approach. And that's one study that I would point to of just having an extreme approach. However, my lab did a study in lean people doing nearly a 40% caloric reduction for 2 weeks.
Wow, that is hard.
That's big.
A lot of people don't realize that's exceedingly difficult for lean people. That is
right.
Yeah, and for 2 weeks. Now, this was also a pilot study. So one group reduced their calories by 50% in the first week and then 25% in the second week. So it averaged 37.5%. The other group just did 37.5% both weeks. That's why I say approximately 40%. What we found after this was, and by the way, they did everything that you should do when you're dieting. They continued their resistance training. So we didn't change their resistance training. We observed it. So we were able to validate, yes, you continue to resistance train. And the other thing we did was we made sure that they were eating 1 gram per pound of protein, 1 gram of protein per pound of body. Yeah, 2.2 grams per kg, which here's something I didn't think of ahead of time. Some of our smaller females, they were eating all protein because they didn't have enough body weight to.
So no carbs.
Right.
For some of them.
Okay.
Some of our larger male subjects, they could eat, I mean, it was still low carbs because it was such a drastic diet. But what I learned though was, and again, I didn't anticipate this. If you're a small person and you're basing your protein on your weight, that may be all of your calories. So big people have a big advantage essentially when you're trying to lose body weight. So what we found, and this is key, there's 2 steps to this. First analysis, they lost about 1/3 of their body weight from fat-free mass, a 2-compartment model. So a 2-compartment model, you have fat and then you have everything else. And they lost more lean tissue than what we would have liked. The obese literature gives us a standard. When you lose body weight, what we see in individuals with obesity, 25% usually comes from lean body mass or fat-free mass. 75% comes from fat mass. So that's the standard that we apply. If you're losing more of that or less than that, that gives you, hey, we're doing something right or something wrong. Now, again, in my lab, we've published about 4 studies where all the weight comes from body fat, but not this one. 1/3, so it's a little bit more coming from lean body mass. And then what we did, that was the first analysis. That was without any body water adjustment. We then said, okay, we have an in-body. What happened to their body water? And what we realized, almost all of the lean tissue that they lost or fat-free body mass was body water. So they really did maintain their lean tissue, almost all of it, when you factored total body water. Right. And then, of course, as we're working on the discussion of this, I realized other people have said, hey, if you're going to do anything short term with a diet, you have to measure body water because otherwise your estimations are going to be way off. So having that knowledge then, if it makes you interpret some of these historic rapid fat loss studies a little differently, because none of them measure body water changes. Right. And if they had what we used to say, hey, this is all muscle mass or lean tissue, well, that's probably wasn't the case. Now, second study, this one's a crazy study. I'm actually writing about this in my research review for next month. They took about 15 males with obesity and they put them on a 4-day extreme diet. So the epitome of a rapid fat loss diet.
4 days, wow.
Yeah. They had them eat 320 calories total for 4 straight days. And get this, they had them exercise nearly 9 hours per day, 45 minutes of arm crank exercise and 8 hours of walking on a treadmill.
I couldn't even do that.
We were just in Vegas for the NSCA and I was walking for 2 hours and I was now again, it was 110 degrees. Right. I kept thinking, I'm like, how in the world did these, yeah, I agree. It was insane. Now, these men were obese, so they probably had a high motivation to do this. Right. Listen to what they did. Again, and this was only a 2015 study. I would think it would be hard to get this study passed today. They also measured body water, almost all of the body fat coming from body fat stores. They measured them 1 month later to see could they maintain this, and a year later to make sure that this hyperphagia, to make sure this wasn't short term. They maintained their fat loss. Now, some of it came back after a year, but within a month, still no real change after going back to normal eating. So they were able to maintain this. So what has this taught me? It's taught me that a rapid fat loss strategy is appropriate or may be appropriate as long as it is very short.